Welcome back. We've abandoned our schedule to concentrate entirely on a shocking event in Utah, in America, where the influential podcaster, the conservative influencer, close friend of and ally of President Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, has been shot in the neck. I've just looked at the video. I don't advise it, but it is a shocking incident, blood pouring from his neck. And we thought at first that he may be dead. We're not sure at all whether he's dead or not, but the word is he may have survived. This is a man with millions of followers on social media. He hosts his own podcast and was on a tour of universities and venues all over America, hosting debates. He loves to debate, and he sort of spreads the Trumpian word, if you like. Now we're going to talk now. As I said earlier, we were hoping to talk to Kinsey Schofield, you know, our royal guru over there in Los Angeles, who's a very, very close friend of Charlie, and our sympathy to Kinsey. She's just literally, I've been trying to persuade her, trust me, she is literally too distraught to talk. So sometimes you get a kind of personal connection to this kind of incident, and we may well get one now as well, because we're going to speak to a spokesman for the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London, a close friend of Charlie Kirk, Erol Morkoc. Errol, thanks for joining us at short notice. First of all, your thoughts?
Well, it's what can you say? This is the repetition of left-wing violence on our movement. Charlie Kirk was somebody who cared a great deal about free speech, not just in the United States, but he cared about it in the UK, and that's where I met Charlie when I helped play a small role in launching Turning Point UK with him. And you know, Charlie, above all else, he cared about debate. He cared about coming to these kind of places where it's unfriendly environments, places where maybe some of us have gone and done things, but never to the level Charlie did, never with the level of passion that he did. He always took on the challenges. And this is what happens. This is what happens when you put yourself out there. You get shot at. People will try to kill you. They'll try to kill an idea. And that's never worked. It's never worked against our enemies. It's not going to work against people of faith. It's not going to work against an ideology. But that's what we're up against. We're coming with debate and questions, and they're coming with bullets and armor. And now we have a very good man in the hospital today.
This happened at Utah Valley University, I think now about an hour and a half ago, something like that. Tragically or shockingly, his wife and children were there, his two kids, and may well have witnessed this awful event. We've got a name, but I'm not going to reveal it yet because it hasn't been confirmed. But we understand that the shooter may well have been a registered Democrat. Again, not confirmed, but we are looking into that, obviously. But tell us, you worked with Charlie. Tell us about him. What kind of a guy was he?
No, he was like such a kind guy. I mean, I just played a very small role, you know, with him, and for a short period of time in my life, I had the pleasure of being somebody who was close to him, and you know, texted with him and was friends with them, and we, you know, he welcomed me to come with him to Mar-a-Lago and to be part of the world he was building. I remember sitting down with him in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in London, and you know, telling him, you know, some of my plans, and immediately we vibed, and immediately he said, "You're the kind of guy who I want to be doing this with, and I want you to be part of our team." And just like, again, just a small part. I wasn't big cog in the wheel, but just to be included and to be able to do something with somebody who I had a lot of respect for, and somebody who was taking that movement forward. You know, it meant a lot to me, and it was great to work with him. He was professional, he was kind, he is professional, he is kind, he is, and he is going to make it through this. We all know that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Charlie. He was a guy who brought people in. And even if you disagreed with him, if you sat down with him for 10 or 20 minutes, you might walk away and be like, man, I hate that I disagree with him. But he never made you feel small. He never made you feel bad about your opinions. And he always let you speak if you disagreed with him. Now, I happen to agree with him, so maybe a little bit easier relationship than some of the videos we would see on the internet when he's combative. But even then, you saw the great respect he had for debate. And you know, in the personal situations, I remember being in Mar-a-Lago with him just in a private moment. We were just laughing about, you know, how surreal this was, and how we, you know, from different backgrounds had gotten to this situation. And I think that's what we want to take away the most of my
the campaign for US Senate candidate Mark Kirk, no relation, and organised a campaign to reverse a price hike on his school cafeteria. So he's one of those people. He went on to attend Harper College, but dropped out to pursue political activism full time. So he's one of those people who, you know, is a politician through and through, even at school, campaigning against price hikes in the cafeteria. A natural politician.
Yeah, I mean that's the guy he was. He was the guy who didn't need to go to college because he'd already been there in his own mind. He understood the dialogue. He was wise beyond his years. He was somebody, who was able to have that scholarly debate without having been a traditional student himself, and the way he brought it all in, the way he took that movement from high school and immediately, from his garage. I mean, I know the original story. It's from a garage with a small check, and from there he turned this into a worldwide organization that's changed a lot. I met my fiance. I'm getting married in December in Palm Beach, but the woman I met because of Charlie Kirk.
Oh,
Because of his
really?
organization.
Really?
Yeah. Without Charlie, I'm not going to meet my wife. I mean, this how much he's touched just me without even knowing it, just by what he's built and how many other lives he's changed by what he built. It's incredible, and it's not to be understated how rare it is to see a young person do that at such a level, with the level of professionalism and courtesy that he did. He never got too down in it. He always stayed above the fray, despite going in it. He always kept that professionalism, and that's what turned so many young people onto our movement. Without him, I don't think we would have had a President Trump in 2016 or 2020. That's how important Charlie Kirk is to the conservative movement and to America.
I was just going to ask you that, Errol. Just how important was he in the last two campaigns to Donald Trump? How important is he? How important is he to the Republican movement in terms of attracting the young vote?
Yeah, I mean, well, just look at the demographics that all of a sudden emerged. The concept of a male vote. Well, that never existed until the last election, and it was always a split demographic. Charlie Kirk was the first person to, sort of galvanize young men, not in a negative way, but in a positive way of, self-actualization and, following Christ or other positive leaders if that you want, and not specifically Christ, but he was always, following positive things. And all of those things are what got young men to start being more politically active. And then men became a voting bloc. And that's a lot of what that those newly involved voters, I mean, those came from the videos and the organizational structure of Turning Point USA and other organizations that came off of that and spawned off of that, as well as how Donald Trump actually realized, hey, this is a powerful grassroots real movement. The difference between our movement and the Republican Party and some of the other movements is, we're not knocking on doors, because people are paying us. We're doing it for free. When Republicans Overseas UK comes on Al Jazeera, we pay our own pocket and we sleep in our own hotel and we fly on Ryanair to get there. They fly all the other guys in first class and they put them up in a hotel. We actually believe in what we're saying. Nobody pays us to do a darn thing that we do here because we care about it. And that's the kind of passion that Charlie got out of people. He got people who do it for free, and other people wouldn't do it for anything. And that's really something to be commended, because that's the kind of movement that led to the Make America Great Again movement, leading to Donald Trump's reelection. And everybody played a role, and young men finally had their say, and that was because of Charlie.
Tell us a bit about Turning Point Action. So obviously a big organization in America. That he was on a tour for Turning Point, but you were just saying earlier in this conversation that you've set up a similar organization, or shall we say a British arm of this Turning Point?
There had, in 2019, there was the formation of that organization, and then I it was a student organization, and so from that moment I moved on. It is still, as far as I know, functional in the UK, but there's a lot of different organizations in the UK. The Turning Point USA movement is much bigger, obviously, and the campus-wide outreach in the US is much different than the UK. That's one of the differences we had. Sort of the US campuses were different than the UK campuses, so it is a much smaller organization, as far as I know, in the UK. But in the United States, it's fundamentally a gigantic organization. It spawns across campuses and young people. Even there's high school level, like for seniors, rising seniors going into their university. So it's become a youth movement, but it's also a youth movement that your parents don't hate and you don't hate as a young person. It's kind of cool. Like, I mean, it's counterculture because it's conservative. Now conservatism is counterculture, so young people can kind of gravitate to that, but also probably your parents secretly don't hate that you're there. So it's a really fun place to go. And the fact that those young people had to run in fear of gunshots. I was one of those young students one time there just, to hear out debates. And that's a terrifying thing to imagine that happened there to those young people who felt safe and felt they were amongst, friends and peers, especially when conservative students don't have that feeling in their campus anywhere usually.
Yeah,
So it's,
you know what's interesting, Errol? It's always been difficult. You probably know this. Also, if you're young, you're a student. It's difficult to be on the right side of politics because most young people, tend to reject that worldview. So Charlie Kirk, to what extent has he helped young people feel good about their right-wing politics?
Yeah, I think by just normalizing the ideology, by repeating our beliefs and doing it in a public place and not being afraid to do that. When I was a student at Berkeley, it was very clear that there was just the Berkeley answer. And if you didn't give that answer, you weren't going to be included socially. So what was the real value of going against it as a student, especially if you want to get internships or you want to be included in organizations and you want to, you have student debt and you want to get out of there. But somebody like Charlie to go and stand in the proverbial town square, the forum, the quad, and say, no, I disagree. And despite everybody being against that viewpoint, you see somebody there, standing in the line of fire. Maybe it doesn't galvanize you that day, but later on you remember that. And that gets passed down, and eventually, that kind of courage is noticed, and you show up every single day and you bring that to the table, and all of a sudden it turns into a real movement. And I think that's what Charlie did. He turned something that people thought was already like they already thought they lost the culture war when Charlie Kirk showed up. The culture war was over. We had lost. We didn't lose. In fact, we were right there in the game the whole time. You just had to believe in yourself as much as Charlie Kirk believed in himself, believed in Turning Point USA, and believed in President Trump. And he got shot today for that.
He was a very hard worker as well. Of course, he was the host of his massive radio podcast program, The Charlie Kirk Show, which receives about 500,000 to 300 to 750,000 downloads every day, which is phenomenal. But he's written a lot of books as well. Time for a Turning Point, 2016, Campus Battlefield, 2018, The MAGA Doctrine, 2020, The College Scam, 2022, Right Wing Revolution, 2024. This guy was prolific. He was a hell of a hard worker, or he is a hell of a hard worker.
Yeah. Oh, he absolutely was. And I was there for a couple of the stories in those books. I mean, I was in the events that he was writing about, and it was cool as a young person or as a student to have, been at these events. And finally you saw an author actually write about the events and the perspectives that you had as a conservative student, the Battlefield Campus or whatever, I forgot the title is at the moment. But these books, I mean, he's not only a hard worker, but he's a generous person, and he gave a lot of money to charity and a lot of money, to good organizations. So he didn't just do it for himself. He cranked out these books, and young people read them, and they're a way to disseminate the ideology. And oftentimes, they shoot the messenger, and that's what Charlie Kirk was, the messenger.
And let's go back to the American dream, as it were. Why does it keep turning into this kind of nightmare? Why is it? I mean, we have problems here in this country. Britain well as well. I think our political discourse has become far more caustic, far more aggressive. People no longer seem to be able to disagree with each other in a civilized way. In America, that has been a problem for a long time. I mean, is there anything both countries, but particularly America, can do about this?
Man, at this point, I guess not. Doesn't seem like it, right? It doesn't seem like there's any, I mean, outside of some sort of techno-fascism where we all live in segregated areas and scan each other's faces and have social credit scores and lives in some dystopian hellscape, I don't understand how the society that my parents grew up in is so deviated from the society that I grew up in, which is unrecognizable from the society today. And I'm not that old, bro. I'm
Yeah.
not that old
I
to
could
feel
tell
that.
that, Errol. I could see that.
Yeah, I shouldn't have to feel that the country I grew up in is completely gone. Like none of the values, nothing. It's the rate of change. When my mother was a student in high school, they would bring the rifle to school, lock it in their locker, and have a shooting club after school. That was the ethos of the country. Now, you just shoot everybody at school or shoot people you disagree with. 58 people were murdered in Chicago over Labor Day, and they say it's not a war zone. So I don't have an answer for you at this point. I mean, I just watched a man who I respect and care deeply of and consider a friend get shot, and I can't quite tell you that there's a remedy to that. It doesn't seem like there's any direction of that, and I don't see how we get better before things get worse at this rate. Maybe that's not the optimistic attitude I should have, but that's how it feels.
Well, I understand it, Errol. I've got to tell you, shockingly, right now, as we speak, apparently there's a school shooting going on in Chicago. Colorado, okay. Sorry, not Chicago, Colorado, in Colorado.
Jesus.
Right now, right now. Now, what's going to happen on
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Doesn't even surprise me. Not even 1%. Doesn't even shock me as an American. That's like, okay, Wednesday.
Yeah, I tell you, that's our attitude over here. You know, when somebody says to me, you know, as a newsman, oh, there's been a school shooting, you know, my first question is how many? You know, how many dead? And if they say 4, yeah. If they say 4, well, you know, going to need more than that to make the grade, as it were. And that is a sad comment on where we're heading. Now, over on this side of the Atlantic, Errol, there will be the usual cries, well, why don't the Americans do something about gun control? I mean, but basically gun control would not prevent this kind of incident. And those in favour of the right to bear arms will always say it's not guns that are dangerous, it's the people who fire them.
Yeah, and Charlie was one of those people. And Charlie would sit here right now if he was in my chair, and he would say that it was somebody who illegally used a gun to try to murder him. Like, good, decent folks don't do this. My friends and I all own weapons. We don't do any of this. We keep them locked up. We protect our neighborhoods. It's just normal behavior. So you have a situation also where mental health has I think circumnavigated sort of the checks and balances we had. There's zero, I guess, abrogation of your rights, even if you're completely lunatic, like to the point where you're chopping off body parts. We're just gonna like have no checks and balances, and I think we're coming to a head on that. Like, there needs to be some point where certain types of people who are obviously threats are removed from this process. How do we do that when it's enshrined in the Constitution and these are your God-given rights? It's very difficult to do. But Charlie was a firm defender of the Second Amendment, firm supporter of the right to bear arms, and this illegal use of weapons is exactly, you know, what he was, I think, they're talking about in regards to some of the trans murders and stuff. That was the timing of this shot. Not to bring up that, but I mean, there's been a lot of violence that's come from certain segments of people who are on certain types of medication, and there might be a connection here. I don't know, but it was reported. I think that the timing of the shot is very relevant to why the situation is so screwed up, because certain people I don't think can have weapons in this modern society that we've built, but we have the right to as Americans. So now we need to figure this one out, and quickly.
Last couple of questions, really, Errol. Thanks so much again for joining us at such short notice in such sad circumstances. But Charlie Kirk was over here in Britain back in May. And he went to the Cambridge University, and got involved in some very spirited discussions, if we can put it that way. And I think he was quite shocked by the intolerance that he encountered from students who did not share his worldview. I mean, I'm assuming Charlie is pro-life. That's something that doesn't tend to go down well with our students here in this country. He's also a very strong supporter of Israel. By the way, that's got him in trouble with the left and the right. The right in America don't like his views on Israel. So quite an independent thinker, prepared to fly in the face of what you might expect from someone like him. But when he was in Britain, as I say, he got involved in these really heated debates at Cambridge. And of course they dismissed him as a fascist and a Nazi and all that. And I think he was a bit shocked by the intolerance, the failure to appreciate the value of free speech and the right to hold different opinions. I think he was shocked about that. You talked about his love of free speech and his fear, like President Trump, like J.D. Vance, that we here in Britain are losing our power of free speech. He was worried about that.
I think he was worried about that, and rightly so, based on, his experiences and my experiences going around and doing public speaking in the UK. I mean, I just for a parallel, I had one example where I was in Bradford, of all places, for some reason, in the middle of the debate, Chatham House and all these people were there. I said, 200, 300 people. I said, can we stop this debate for a minute? Just a show of hands from the audience. How many people here like think I'm a legitimate Nazi? And about 75% of the people raised their hand. And I said, do you think a Turkish guy flew here from Berkeley to St. Andrews, took 3 trains to get to a village. You'd never heard of this place in my life, to spend an hour talking to you people, and you think I'm a Nazi. That's where we're starting from. This is a hopeless. We didn't even need to show up here if that was the basis. And so I'm nobody. Charlie Kirk walks into these big time places and he deals with that kind of stuff, and it's national news, and he stands there and he's shocked and appalled at the absolute abrogation of debate, or even giving the other side the courtesy or common decency of hearing them out. That used to be a thing back in the day. I've heard, I wasn't there, but I heard, for example, at my alma mater at Berkeley, they used to let a white supremacist come and speak and then denounce him and say, what an idiot. Look at that guy. We let him speak. Now get him off the stage and refute all of his points. Now that's what I thought free speech was. By the time I got to universities, and by the time I got to the UK and saw free speech in the UK as well as California, which I guess isn't quite part of the US, I would say it's completely gone. And Charlie was fighting for that. And he was fighting for that in the UK for British citizens. As maybe unwelcome as he was, it was from a good place.
Well, you know that some of us in Britain are rather embarrassed about the erosion of our right to free speech. It is very, very humiliating for a lot of us. My apologies. Listen, I want to. This is shocking. This is unbelievable. MSNBC, your favourite TV news service, MSNBC. Listen to this. This isn't a quote, but they effectively say Charlie Kirk had it coming. This is the quote. You can't stop with these awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and then not expect awful actions to take place. That has just been broadcast on MSNBC.
Well, these people have a special place reserved for them somewhere.
Can you believe that? Can you believe
that is insane. So if you disagree with people, and just kill them, just kill them. Just kill them. Like these people can't explain to me what electricity is. These people have the fundamental knowledge scientifically of how the world works of an amoeba. Yet they want to just murder people who disagree with their social opinions. They couldn't build a house. They couldn't build plumbing. They don't know how natural gas works. Most of these people are completely functionally illiterate morons, and yet they somehow believe that their ideological social opinions are worth killing people over. That's the level of narcissistic people we have in our society. Narcissistic people embodied and encouraged by this academic system that took crazy people and elevated them to positions of authority to validate more crazy people, until you get what you have here today, which is the good guys getting shot in the head by people like that and that kind of a mentality. That makes me sick.
It makes me sick too. MSNBC obviously assuming that if you have right of centre opinions, they are inherently awful. Because you express those right of centre opinions, you can only expect something awful to happen, like this. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah. And now his 2 kids, his 1-year-old and his 3-year-old, don't have a father.
Come
and
on.
then so because you disagreed with him, now these kids have no dad.
Well, let's hope that he.
No, not saying that. Not saying.
Let's just fingers crossed, Erol. Erol, listen. Once again, thank you so much. Are you in London at the moment, or are you over in the States?
I'm coming. I'll be there in like 4 days. I'm back in the States.
So have you still been all the time? You've been over there after your car crash, or?
Yeah. But I'm in Detroit right now, but I'll be coming for the state visit.
4 days, right.
Hold me to it.
I owe you a beer. Thank you so much, Erol. Good to talk to you. Erol Morkoc, spokesman for the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London, in the UK, but also a very close friend of Charlie Kirk. It is extraordinary that it is now being expressed in America that Charlie Kirk effectively, because of his forthright right of centre opinions, Trumpian outlook, had it coming. This is on MSNBC, a TV news outlet that makes CNN look fascist.